Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight on 207. I'm Samantha York.
And I'm Rob Caldwell. Coming up in this half hour, why are we seeing so many great white sharks off the coast of Maine beaches this summer? It's a question a lot of people are asking, and the experts we spoke to say it's actually a good sign they are here.
But first tonight, Perrin Roosevelt Ireland has just written a book that's likely to get more than the usual amount of attention. The name of it is Poking the Squid.
The subtitle tells you more: what we can learn from animal sex. Not only did Perrin Ireland write the book, she also illustrated it, creating hundreds and hundreds of funny images to go along with her storytelling, which is both amusing and scientifically rigorous. Let's start at the beginning. How did you get interested in the subject of animal sex?
So I have told stories about animal behavior for over a decade in my career, and I find that when I'm talking about animal behaviors, if I'm sharing stories of journal papers that focus particularly on reproductive behaviors, the viewer tends to be especially engaged. And I began to really feel the need for a deeper, more thorough conversation about what is it we're talking about when we talk about animal sex, and it became necessary to write this book.
So even with animals, as with people, sex sells.
Indeed. It is titillating on all fronts.
What the book makes clear, among other things, is that the range, the diversity of animal sex is just mind-blowing.
Yes. So my brain got totally scrambled about what sexual behaviors animals are doing, who they're doing it with, how sex is organized inside bodies, how that changes depending on community needs and what the animal needs. And they present to us really such a buffet of options for how life keeps lifing itself.
To write this book, Perrin Roosevelt Ireland burrowed deep into the scientific research, such as a female ornithologist's groundbreaking study of the sex lives of female chickadees.
And lo and behold, formerly thought to be highly monogamous female chickadees were scooting out of their nests early in the morning while their mate was hollering about his territory and his babe, and having, chickadee quickadees with more alpha male neighbors, and then returning to the nest with their mate none the wiser, who then proceeded to help her co-raise nests with multiple fathers, and nobody minded.
One thing that it is hard for humans to wrap our brains around is how animals' bodies change during sex or because of sex or whatever, right?
So here in Maine, we think about barnacles. There are barnacles that will have sex the first time they have sex as a male. Then they'll change and reproduce as a female going forward, or they'll change and reproduce as what scientists call a hermaphrodite, which is an animal that produces both eggs and sperm. So they're making so many decisions, and they're exhibiting such freedom of tissue across a lifetime.
Something that the book makes clear is that gay sex in the animal kingdom is not at all uncommon.
Indeed.
It is almost everywhere.
You really can't shake a stick without hitting an animal that's having same-sex sex. There's over 1,500 species where this has been documented as happening. In Atlantic bottlenose dolphins, after they leave their mother, from whom they learn a lot about navigating life in the ocean, the males will go spend their time mostly in all-male communities, having quite a lot of sex with each other throughout their days, and then they'll, reproduce with females, and then go back to hunting and fishing together. So it's not something they are concerned about each other doing. They're not killing each other over it. They're just doing it.
I read that in doing the illustrations that you would actually do some warm-up exercises, because otherwise you'd end up with carpal tunnel syndrome or other problems because you have so many illustrations in that book.
A comics artist who had finished another book said to me, with that deadline, you better be warming up and you better be doing lots of yoga because you're going to get carpal tunnel. So I would do my exercises before I started, I would stand up and take breaks between, and then I would do them at the end. People don't think of comics as being, physically grueling, but it is in its way.
In creating this book, you talked to a lot of serious scientists, you looked at a lot of serious academic papers, but you tell the story in a very readable, playful way, particularly with the illustrations. Why did you think that was so important?
Well, I know that a lot of people blush when we talk about sex, and I wanted to make sure people felt as comfortable as possible, to keep it light and loose and playful, because it is funny, and it is silly, and they are bawdy and outrageous, and it's also serious business.
And you will never think about barnacle sex in the same way because you've never thought about barnacle sex before.
I'm also never going to look at chickadees the same way again ever. I'm going to look out my window and be like, yeah, you look like you're foraging for berries, but I know what you're up to, Missy.
And I think maybe the term of 2026, chickadee quickadee.
I love it. I love it. Make bumper stickers, please.
But there's also a serious message, a lot of serious messages in the book, and one of them is that sexual diversity in animals creates biodiversity. Biodiversity is good for the earth. When animals and habitats are healthy and productive, then that is good for the earth so that the animals can reproduce and thrive.
Yeah, full circle.
Yeah.
Right there.
Again, the name of Perrin Roosevelt Ireland's new book is Poking the Squid, What We Can Learn from Animal Sex. And obviously, there's a whole lot more that we could not get into in this program.
Great interview, Rob. Coming up next on 207, what scientists in Maine are saying about the number of great white sharks spotted off the coast this summer in ways you can be on the lookout for these animals safely from shore.
Over the last 3 weeks, there have been nearly a dozen credible sightings of great white sharks off the coast of Maine. Those sightings are making a lot of people curious about why the sharks are here and if this is the new normal.
We spoke with scientists at the Gulf of Maine Research Institute and the University of New England about what could be bringing the sharks so close to shore, and first asked how rare it is to see this many great whites off the coast of Maine.
Very recently, it seems like we're seeing more sharks around here. It's still pretty rare. It's hard to know historically how rare it is because, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we didn't have drones everywhere around the sky. So maybe we would see one shark and say, oh, there is one shark.
Yeah.
Or we would see one fin, but we wouldn't know if there is one fin and one shark or one fin and 10 sharks, let's say, around here.
So technology has kind of changed the way that we're
Technology
able...
has clearly improved our capability and capacity to see those sharks. And the more you look for them, the more you're going to find them.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that there are more sharks around than there used to be because population recovery is a real thing and it's a good thing.
Yeah, and I think most people don't think of Maine when they think of great white sharks, but they're obviously here. So what could be bringing them? Is it warming waters? Is it more food? Are they lost?
So they're definitely not lost. They're not lost. They know where they're going. They know what they're doing. I think it's definitely a combination of factors. The primary one is going to be food. Like we are seeing huge schools of sea bass. We are seeing pogies in the bay right now. So there is good food for them. Seals are doing a lot better. So those juvenile sharks that we are seeing close to Scarborough, for example, they're probably too small to eat a full-on grown seal, but they are munching on sea bass, and temperatures also play a role. They're getting more and more comfortable, and it's just their natural migration which make them come in these waters during summertime.
Ultimately, they're looking for habitats that they prefer.
Scientists like Brian Franks at the University of New England have spent decades researching the movements and migration patterns of sharks.
One of the most interesting things that we learned when we used these multi-year tags on them is not only how repeatable their migrations are, but in some cases how specific it is, where they not only go back to the same region, they'll in some cases go right back to the same area, but it's certainly prey is an important one. As a predator, you need to obtain food. So a lot of these animals are likely, searching for and then following schools of fish.
We talk about schools of fish, and I'm sorry if this is a silly question. Do sharks swim in packs? Like, do they have big groups that they swim in, or do they swim alone?
Very good question. Certain species definitely school more than others. The lemon sharks that I studied in Bimini did tend, especially when they were smaller, to group up a little bit, and it was generally by size. So similar sized animals would group together, maybe for protection because those smaller ones can be eaten. But then other species, and a lot of sharks, they do tend to be solitary unless there's a reason for them to group up, whether it's mating or protection or whatever.
And great whites are warm-blooded, so they, right? So they can survive in the cooler waters.
They can. So They're not truly warm-blooded like we are
Okay.
as homeotherms, so as a mammal is. They can elevate their body temperature above the ambient water. And white sharks do that by conserving the heat that's generated by the muscles that they're using while swimming. So that muscle activity generates heat, which warms the blood around the muscles. They're able to conserve some of that heat, which then elevates the body temperature.
What does their presence say about the health of our coast ecosystem?
Sharks in general are either what we call mesopredators, so they sit kind of in the middle of the food web, or they're apex and they sit at the top of the food web. Either way, the only way you're going to have a healthy shark population is if everything below it is doing well or healthy as well. And for that reason, a lot of times sharks are called indicators or sentinel species, because if shark populations have declined, it's likely, not always, but it's likely that the things below it, everything from the plankton on up to the invertebrates to the fish, are also not doing well. So a healthy, robust shark population is usually reflective of a healthy ocean.
The sharks will eventually move back south to warmer waters. In the meantime, keep these tips in mind.
First of all, like if you're going to a place where you have lifeguards, they're going to look for signs of white shark themselves, and there will be flags that tell you don't go in the water. If you're in a place where there is no lifeguards, then I would maybe avoid swimming around dawn or dusk, where the water conditions and the water clarity and the light levels are changing very quickly. It makes it harder for the sharks to see well. If you see a lot of bait activity, if you see small fish jumping around, if you see big fish jumping around, lots of fish swimming, I would probably not go swimming in the fish school right now, because the sharks, they would try to get anything in that school and they would maybe potentially make a mistake and not know that you're not a fish.
So scary or, kind of alarming to see them, but it's okay that they're here. And talking to Brian Franks too, he's done tagging of sharks down in Florida. He hasn't done it up in Maine yet. So he's probably followed some of these sharks. And he says another way to look at what's happening is like before a bear hibernates for the winter, they grab all their food, whatever, so they can rest. So this is kind of what the sharks are doing before they migrate back south. They're just filling up their tank essentially with food, and then they'll turn around and go back.
And we tend to freak out. A lot of people freak out about sharks, but if you look, step back and think of the bigger picture, that indicates that generally the ocean ecosystem is in pretty good shape. If there are sharks around, that's a good thing. That's a really good thing.
Might be doing something right.
Yeah.
So again, sharks will be migrating back to warmer waters probably come fall. This is the perfect time for them to be here. You can learn more about the research that's being done at the Gulf of Maine Research Institute and the University of New England on our website and app.
And it's interesting to think that more than 50 years now we've been talking about and fascinated by and obsessed by sharks, obsessed with sharks, pretty much all because of one motion picture.
We're gonna need a bigger boat.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with Maine Things To Do.
Hey there, it's time for your weekly dose of Maine Things To Do. It's your chance to hear about all the fun happening around our state this week. People send me their events through our website, newscentermaine.com/Maine Things To Do, and then we do this. Ready, set, go. All right, first on the list this week is the Rev It Up party at the Owl's Head Transportation Museum in Owl's Head on Thursday. This is the lead-up celebration to the New England Auto Auction, which is also back in Owl's Head this weekend. Come on out for live music, food, lawn games, prizes, and get a first look at the cars up for auction this year. The event is from 2 to 7, and the flyer has more. To the weekend now, there is a lawn sale happening in Searsmont on Saturday. It benefits the Gary Owen House, which is a shelter for homeless veterans. The sale is from 8 to 2. The Portland Fine Craft Show is this Saturday in Portland's Lincoln Park. There will be more than 100 artists from across the Northeast showcasing their work. The event is free, open to the public, and it's happening from 10 to 5. The Maine State Cake Decorating Championship is this Saturday in Paris. The event celebrates Hannibal Hamlin Ireland, who was born in Paris and served as vice president under President Abraham Lincoln. Think of the day as an old-fashioned birthday party full of entertainment, food, photo ops, and even cow pie bingo. The event is free to the public and it starts at 11 a.m. Speaking of cows, the Cowboy Ball is happening this Saturday in Lyman. Come on out for an evening of dancing, great food, and an auction to benefit the Carlisle Foundation. The organization provides equine-assisted therapies and other services to children and adults with disabilities. The event is from 5:30 to 8:30, and just check out the flyer for more details. Also on Saturday, there's a school supplies drive-by drop-off in Vassalboro. All you need to do is buy some school supplies, drive by, and drop them off at the Vassalboro Fire. I almost had it there. It's all those R's, man. All right, one moment, please. All you need to do is buy some school supplies, drive by, and drop them off at the Vassalboro Fire Station, and the crew will take care of the rest. Just know your donations will support kids in the area that need them most. The event is from 10 to 1. All right, and that's all we have time for. Pretty good list. And that is Maine Things to Do this week. As always, if you know of an event or happening in your hometown or community, send it my way. Send it through our website, newscentermaine.com/Maine Things To Do. Try to give me at least a week's notice, although a 2 weeks notice would be better. I'm Samantha York, and remember, if you are bored in Maine, oh my gosh, it's your own darn fault. See you next time. Coming up tomorrow on 207, have you ever wanted to hop in the car and see how fast you can go?
Drivers have been doing it as long as we have had automobiles. The need for speed still has people building cars for drag racing. That includes a group called the Gasser Guys, who have used cars for more than 40 years old. And some of the racers are way older than that.
That runs like 620s, 630s, right around there, about 100 and roughly 10 miles an hour in the eighth, 660 feet. It's a blast.
So, look at that smile.
What keeps these guys putting the hammer down at an age when some think about retirement? Tomorrow on 207, Don Kerrigan meets a few of these longtime car racers to find out what drives them.
Oh, did you hear them taking off? Sounds good. A few weeks ago, we told you about a new movie starring Whip Hubley, who lives in South Portland and played the pilot in Hollywood, or the pilot of Hollywood in the original Top Gun.
It's a small independent film that he is, I'm sorry? Oh, sorry. Just the voices in my head, pay no attention. All right, he's in a small independent film now called Road to Everywhere. And what's interesting about it is that it's a sequel to a small independent film Hubley made 30 years ago. He plays the same character, a burned out cab driver. Those kinds of sequels are almost unheard of, but this one actually got made. If you'd like to see it on the big screen, you can catch it Thursday at 7 p.m. at Nickelodeon Cinema in Portland. Again, that's main actor Whip Hubley in that film, Thursday at the Nick in Portland.
I love that story that you did.
Yeah, and if you want to know more about the backstory, you can find that by going to our website and just searching Hubley, Road to Everywhere. You'll get the whole interview that we did, and it was really interesting. Thanks for being with us this evening on 207.
We'll see you back here tomorrow at 7 for more of 207.